So what I've done now is added in some horizontal lines, and we know that they're horizontal. They match our horizon line. Vertical lines running top to bottom. The horizontal line that I used as a guideline I've left in a lot of places just so I have something to compare it to. Often when you look at your work, you'll see that your line might not compare to the horizon line. That's going to affect your total drawing and make your buildings look as if they're not in perspective, and probably you're going to have to go back and do it again. So from time to time, just look at the drawing and make sure that the lines you've added, mine being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 horizontal lines that connect to the top and bottom corners of my buildings as they come towards me. I've also gone back and chiseled out the edges and the corners, which I think everybody should do from time to time to just make sure that the overall shape of your building makes sense and looks logical. Alright, we're going to move on now. If you haven't realized, these are line segments. They all connect to points. In perspective tool drawing software, something that you might use might be Adobe Photoshop, or you might use CorelDRAW, or you might use a 3D modeling program called SketchUp that downloads for free from Google. All these programs rely on line segments and an axis of the XY coordinate. In math, the XY coordinate is very simple to understand. It's basically intersecting lines at 90-degree angles to form 4 separate areas that can be described on the computer. And they're plotted and used. In a 3D modeling program, that intercept has another one to go in 3 ways. So you have lines continuing this way, and this way. This would be a 3-dimensional modeling scheme, and the 2-point perspective would also be a 3-dimensional modeling scheme, and the 1-point perspective would also be a 3D modeling scheme. Anytime you're just drawing flat shapes, like triangles, like squares, like circles, like rectangles, these shapes are considered 2-dimensional. That means that you can turn them on only one axis right here. You can spin them around and around, but you can't look and see what's underneath them. Buildings like this, we can see other dimensions. We see what's in front of them, above them, and below them, and we also see what's behind them in parts from side to side. So the 3 dimensions that we see being the flat area, right, the side and the top area, and of course the interior angles before they're revealed. Okay, drawing windows is not as precise as people assume. It just requires a pretty good, steady hand and the ability to lay down pairs of dots, indicating where you want your windows to be. You don't have to draw these very dark. I want one window set to run this tall, from one dot to the next. I want my next window set to run equally tall, from one dot to the next. I think I'm going to have a doorway too, and on doorways it's good to mark the bottom of your door first. It's logical that my door would be about this wide on a building this big, would be probably about half as tall as the building if it's 2 stories, so I'd want another dot here, and let your ruler do the rest. Drawing these 3 dots gives you all the information you need to draw the door. The windows, drawing these 2 dots gives you all the information you need to know. Having a ruler handy is very important, and I'll show you why. You need to be able to line up the edge of the 2 dots that you've drawn with the edge of your ruler. Once you've lined them up, you can make a very easy line segment. What I'm going to do real quick is connect all these line segments so you can see what I mean. Okay, I've connected the line segment for the back left side of my door, line segment for the top right part of my window, and for the second part of the window. Now what I'm going to do is line up my ruler with each of the tops of these segments. Remember, there was a point here, a point here, a point here, and a point here that it's easy to match my ruler up to. On the door, there was just one point at the top that we need to match up to the vanishing point. If you haven't figured it out already, everything relies on that vanishing point, so moving the ruler on an axis with that vanishing point is very important. It sort of controls the angle of the triangle, so to speak. The triangle gets small, big, big, big. Each of the windows tops can be drawn, but before you draw them, decide how wide you want your windows to be. If they're going to span the width of the building, mark the other side of the building so you know how long to draw your lines. If they're not going to span the width of the building, mark the middle lightly so that you know where your line should stop. But the door, it's easy. You already drew the bottom of it, so all you have to do is go in and just very, very lightly mark where the line's going to stop when you match up your ruler to your vanishing point. Now it's as simple as matching it up and drawing. For the next row of windows, I'm going to skip equal space. If I wanted to do 2 windows above this door really quickly, that would be easy. I would probably want to mark how far my door goes over right now with a couple dots so I know where to place my windows. This is just above the segment here, above the segment here. The next thing that I would probably mark would be how wide it is from a window to the side here, because I would probably want it to be that same width over here. Even though the perspective would probably give you a little extra space, it's good to just go ahead and guesstimate. I think that's probably about how wide I would want my windows to be if there's going to be 4 windows on this building. So I'm using those as guidelines. I'm going to go ahead and draw in my second set of windows here, and the 2 windows that match up and correspond to the 2 windows here. So I have my windows, and I think it's logical to assume that most buildings here would probably have a window on the other side at a similar area. So I usually put a dot for a guide, dot for a guide. Just remember that the tops of these windows don't match up to the vanishing point, they match up to the horizon line. And if you're about to erase your horizon line, it might be smart to draw your windows first and then erase your horizon line. That's what I'm right about to do. I'll be back in a second after I've drawn these windows and erased my horizon line. Signs follow a similar rule. You basically want to mark and indicate where you would like to have a sign. I think I'd like to put one right here, give it a guideline. And this is just a little bit over this window. I'd like the other post of the sign to be centered, so it'll be a little bit over that window. The next thing that I want to do is decide how wide. These are just going to be the posts that hold the sign. On most billboards, they would probably span a little wider. So I think I want it to span this wide on the left and this wide on the right. Just basically relating that to the dots that I made before so that I can have some guidelines with my ruler. Now, for the vertical lines, use your eye and compare your vertical lines to your windows. They're going to have your most perfect top to bottom straight 90-degree angles. Because they're drawn at an angle, the only lines you want to look at are the vertical lines. Obviously, the horizontal lines are going to be diagonal, and you're going to relate those to the bottom and the top of the sign. So for drawing the post, just relate your line to the vertical lines.